Before we get to your scheduled video, please remember that likes and comments tell YouTube to promote our work to other people, and subscribing to the channel tells you when something new drops. You can also head to the link tree in the description to peruse my books, join us on Discord, or support us on Patreon. You can get episodes of Journey of Wrestling and Violent Profiles early, as well as a load of other treats. Even just $1 a month earns you a name drop for being cool. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Greetings and salutations, fellow replicants. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey!
This is the Two Nerds Podcast. Before we get into the taters and meat of this week's podcast, I want to talk about people who are cool. That includes Destrucity, KTL, Passion Killer, 7-Eleven, the enigmatic Rob, and the reason for today's video, a guy from Ohio. Yes, that's right. Not only can you pay us $1 to become cool and get episodes of Journey of Wrestling a week early, but if you pay us enough money, I want to say it's $15 off the top of my head.
It is.
Every month right now, it'll change if like a lot of you start doing this, but you can tell us what to podcast. And we'll do it within reason. A guy from Ohio found out that I had not seen Blade Runner. You have.
I only remember ever having seen the theatrical release, not any of the various later cuts. In fact, I watched Blade Runner before the cut we watched today. Because there are 40,000 cuts of Blade Runner.
I hadn't seen it at all. I mean, I had some spoilers on it because, you know, it's an old movie. And it's been in my to-watch list for a while because a lot of it, you know, ticks stuff I like. But me not having seen it was a crime against humanity and otherwise.
And it has since been rectified. Thank you, a guy from Ohio.
Yeah, thanks, a guy from Ohio. Quite the opposite of Mandy. This was a pretty good watch. How do we approach this?
I think we approach it like any other Two Nerds podcast review. Like any other movie you went to go see. I'm going to have some thoughts as to, you know, changes of what I remember watching back when I was like a teenager. Because that's the last time I saw this movie. And, you know, now, the final cut is what we watched recently. Widely hailed as the best version of the movie. But other than that, I think just like any other review.
All right. So, spoiler-free version of the review.
Of Blade Runner.
1981, I believe, Blade Runner. 82. I was off by a year. It's good, but comparing it with media that has come since, it's a little dry. Not as dry as the recent Dune movies, but it is a little dry.
It's not as frenetic and fast-paced as a modern movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of room given to every scene to breathe. Nothing's really in too much of a hurry. Even the action scenes aren't necessarily... you can tell this movie was made long before today in terms of cinematography and its pacing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different.
Yeah, I would agree. It would not benefit from extensive voiceovers. I think those moments where the actors just sort of are observed and you're left to draw your own conclusions about what their inner monologue is are superior to some sort of wacky...
Well, it was just a film noir sort of detective, the Dame Wore Red style voiceover.
Well, yes, but Harrison Ford didn't like it, so he pulled a Dave Bautista.
Oh yeah, he did it bad on purpose.
Yeah, so, like, I was told about this after the fact, and I made a joke version of what he must have said, and it was way closer to the real version than should have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I didn't tell him about the voiceovers until after the movie was over. Because the movie's way better without them.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, I liked the version I watched back in the day, but the movie's way better without them.
It's also rated R, but mostly for titties and one death scene. And another scene about dealing with your shit.
Yeah.
But it's not like...
There is a titties.
It's not what you would expect, again, from a modern film. Like, there's, like... 3 scenes where it's like, oh, provocative. It's not like a rampant gore fest. This is not Saw or Hostel.
No, certainly not. Although the final cut is notably more... It has more of that than the original cut did.
Yeah.
Again, I think that's probably better. It makes the movie feel more visceral.
Yeah, I got to see a boob, which I have never seen before, and honestly, I think they're pretty good.
Oh, well,
That's 5-star review on boob. You know what? 6.
There you go. But spoiler-free review of the movie is it's a drama. Would you say thriller? That feels like over-egging it.
It's just, I compared it to an indie film when we were done because it felt so small. The plot, despite how important it was to a lot of the characters involved, didn't matter to the city at large. And the city at large, it's not like an Avengers movie where even if, it's just them fighting Crossbones, that matters a lot.
Yeah, no, this is a very noir film.
Yeah,
and it is the bones of cyberpunk as a genre. The city they're in doesn't really mark the passage of any of the events of the movie. It just sort of happens.
And I liked that. And because I liked watching indie movies back in the day where huge drama happened between 4 people that the rest of the world never knew about. And life carried on afterward the same as it had before.
Famously, when I was younger, I did not like indie movies, but I loved this back in the day. I think because it had an indie movie character sensibility, but like the aesthetics were much cooler.
Well, sure, yeah. Some guns happen, a lot of running.
There are tall buildings and neon lights and flying cars.
Not as many blades as you'd think.
I'm a simple man to please at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So that's the spoiler-free review section. We're slowly going to get into spoilers. I will say that this movie didn't blow my mind or anything. And the reason for that is because I am already, I live in a post-Blade Runner world. I'm predisposed to transhumanism as a positive and have accepted it for so long that this is more like, yes, that's the case. Instead of it being like, wow, it really makes you think.
You grew up, you were born into, I believe, a post-Blade Runner world, as was I.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't really look at it with fully fresh eyes, but it was definitely way ahead of its time.
I would agree on that as well, and it's a little tragic that a lot of things like this are, but it made me laugh hearing some of my pet favorite terms from various cyberpunk franchises tossed about at random.
As the random, as you put it, Rob Zombie quotes that filter into pop culture.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like tiny little bits of stuff from other things that you were introduced to in those things. You hear it in this movie and go, oh, that's where they got that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's always fun.
Rob Zombie, of course, specifically as, I don't know if you know this or not, but the song More Human Than Human was largely inspired by this film.
Yeah.
I know you knew that. I meant the audience.
But
you've lived with me.
You've told me that before.
I've told you dumb facts all the time.
But I really like this movie. I like this version of it a lot more, actually. I will say that I never subscribed to the quote-unquote theory that this is a big spoiler.
Huge spoiler.
That Deckard, the main character, the eponymous Blade Runner, is a replicant himself, like a new version of like a newer replicant, the next generation from the ones he's hunting down, that's intended to even more accurately mimic humanity. I never really subscribed to that. I actually was pretty unfond of the theory. I've discovered it is because I watched the theatrical cut. There's a unicorn in the version that we just watched that was not there, like a dream sequence of a real unicorn, and it really does sort of make it not ambiguous. He's a replicant. That's just fact.
I mean, it makes it like, leaning. It is something the audience gets to deduce, as opposed to something the movie tells you outright. You have all of the pieces, all you need to do is put them together. And a lot of people aren't going to put them together, and I like stuff like that.
Or a lot of people are just going to go, it might be a coincidence, might be a more thematic, like, above the narrative sort of choice.
Sure.
As opposed to something that's supposed to be represented in universe. But if this is the version the people who talk about this have been talk about this idea have been talking about this whole time, I understand why they come to that conclusion a lot better now.
And I believe it's word of God, if I recall correctly.
It definitely was the filmmaker's original intent.
Yeah, that's the trope. Word of God. I'm sorry, Internet. I speak in tropes sometimes. Yes, the filmmaker's original intent was to convey that. If we're talking about stuff that we weren't so sure about...
yeah, okay.
I will say that, because you weren't so sure about that take, I didn't care for the fight with Leon Kowalski. I thought it was a little stupid amidst the rest of this film, and tonally weird. And this movie is notorious for being absolutely butchered by the studio. From adding on some extra ending stuff to make it more definitely 100% happier, to the narration, to how upset Harrison Ford was the entire time because he wasn't having a very nice time, you know, etc., etc., etc. That felt like Running Man, not Blade Runner.
It's a very... It's a much more, like, physical altercation than the other fights in the
Well, and that part is fine, and I think, you know, it also... It does a good job of selling, you know, what a replicant is and what they can do. It builds you up for the chase sequence at the end and why Deckard should be so afraid.
Why he should be running.
Yeah, instead of fighting. Also, the fact that the man can endure that kind of punishment is kind of a nod to the old unicorn there. But the dialogue is the stuff that was really, really kind of weird. But it was just that scene. It was like that scene was directed by another person.
I feel like it mostly serves to act as a build-up to the Roy Batty confrontation.
Oh yeah. And I don't think that a fight with Leon should be taken out. I just think that the specific choices they made, especially when it comes to dialogue, was a little strange.
That's fair. There's one line in that fight that I really love because it sets up one of the best lines in the movie.
Sure.
So I am perhaps biased in that way. But it didn't strike me as weird. It just, like, that's a thing that happened.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess, you know, he is kind of stupid. So, saying weird shit in the middle of a fight, it tracks for the character.
Yeah, he's consistently portrayed as not the brightest bulb.
It took me out a little bit.
And that's fair. That's perfectly reasonable.
That's really the only complaint I have. I mean, you know, one might say that me declaring the movie as dry is a complaint. I don't know that it is. It's just a different sit. Someone who hates dry films might not like it, and there's your warning. But I thought it was fine. Some things need to have time to marinate and reflect.
And I like that this movie has that because it gives you time to absorb the atmosphere and to absorb the world building that's going on in, like, the background of all the scenes and all the various bits and bobs that have become entire subgenres in and of themselves.
Yeah, I think the atmosphere was really killer. I really enjoyed some of the special effects shot. I mean, there was only one time where it was like, wow, that character sure is impressed by that matte painting they're looking at. But otherwise, like, really fantastic stuff. And as you said, genre defining.
Yeah. This along with, like, Neuromancer and, like...
If I may, I heard that the author of that, while watching this movie, had to leave like 20 minutes in, head in his hands going, oh my god, this is my fucking book, shit, that he had not yet released.
Yeah.
I feel that. As a writer, the number of times I've written a thing, and then, well, I've had a running feud that only I know about with Jim Butcher, because you'll tell me about something that happened in one of his books, and I'm like, oh man, that's deep lore for my setting. How the hell did that happen? I feel you, my friend. I understand. Please continue.
They just form the bones of the cyberpunk genre.
Yeah.
Really. This and maybe Brazil. But
Brazil is also on my to-watch list.
But, like, it's fun to watch this and see the inspiration for a bunch of other stuff that I really like.
I can really tell why it captured the imagination of people in that time, because even with stuff like Star Wars being out and, you know, all the fantasy epics that were happening around that time. This is unique. This feels like its own thing. Like, they don't deliver exposition on what Deckard's gun is, but it's obviously different from just a gun. It's like a laser cannon, like, rocket shooter thingy.
And just his gun itself has become a pop cultural icon.
Yeah, and that's really fascinating. And
But you're absolutely right. Because it feels so new and original, and it must have been very inspiring for people.
oh yeah, I mean, even now, even, being steeped in this subgenre as I am, I took inspiration from some of the interesting ways they portrayed things. This is getting a little bit more into like what the movie manages to tell by showing. I love that when he's at that noodle stand, he's rubbing his chopsticks together, because like it's a small indication of this noodle stand is fucking cheap. It shows you that either he doesn't have the money to be buying good noodles, or he doesn't give a shit enough to buy good noodles, or is not in a social position to. One little action of a man making sure there's no splinters on his fucking utensils.
It is the movie's filled with tiny bits of really effective world building.
Well, and we say that about the gory moment. Gore spoilers here. The chase with Roy Batty at the end, and this wasn't present in the original cut, as I understand
No,
it.
it got cut out.
His hand starts seizing up because he's dying.
Yeah, his hand's been seizing up throughout the film. It's like a recurring theme.
Right, but like now it's getting real bad. So he drives a nail through his palm in order to stop his hand from seizing up, in order to stop those ligaments from doing what they're doing. And like nobody explains that to you.
He just does it.
He just does it.
If you're not paying attention, that's just a weird thing that guy does.
Yeah, and well, to be fair, he does a lot of other really weird shit, like shove his head through a wall and start taunting a man. He decides it's time to hang out with a dove now.
Taunting? No. He shoves his head through that wall and has a calm conversation with a man. Like he's ducking in from the kitchen. Roy Batty, Rutger Hauer's performance is, we're not saying anything new here.
No.
Fucking tour de force. He's the most entertaining motherfucker in the movie.
I really enjoyed Edward James Olmos. He might have been my favorite character. Very subtle. He's a side thing, but a lot of magnitude in what little screen time he had.
And a very important character to the narrative.
Yes. Yeah, to all parts of the narrative. It reminds me of the way they build the good Silent Hill games. Obviously Pyramid Head is interesting, and the main character is interesting, and his daughter is interesting. But what about the guy who's turning the elevator crank? Why is he there, and why is he helping? It's stuff like that. And it's so present in the way they deliver, the way they use this vehicle of film to tell a story.
I have one complaint about the platform on which we watched the movie.
Ah, yes, I agree.
We watched it on Amazon because it was available on like maybe Peacock or whatever, but I don't want fucking commercials in Blade Runner, so I rented it on Amazon. Amazon was defaulting to believe we had some sort of fucking $5,000 hi-fi studio surround sound system, and so the audio mix on the movie was fucking absurd. And like, it didn't destroy the movie or anything, but there were a lot of scenes that were harder to understand because the mix was so off and the background noise was too loud, because it was supposed to be going through several speakers, and it was all coming through just our TV speakers, and we couldn't figure out how to change that.
Yeah. I've heard that's the reason that happens, is because it's defaulting to think you have a better sound setup than you do, but
Yeah, I've got this information from one.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to fix it.
Might just be that the audio mix on the Amazon version of Blade Runner Final Cut is bad. Warning, that might be the thing.
It was really just the early movie when Harrison Ford was at his mumbliest that we really missed anything. But I don't know that we missed anything. More as just like some character development, some,
tiny words here
setup,
and there that pay off later, but like it's not a huge deal. It's just the only really complaint I have is not the movie's fault. It's the platform on which I watched it.
I will also bring this up because we have another 10 minutes to fill.
Of course.
And reading about the film afterward as I have, I understand why this scene was even more aggressive than perhaps was scripted. But the quote-unquote love scene.
Yeah, well... well, it's time for that. It's time to talk about the orangutan, is it?
It's the 80s. It's the 80s. And we had different values back then than we do now.
It is, of the various things in the movie that are ahead of their time, this part of the movie is very much of its time.
Yes.
There were different values and social mores that were in place in the 80s that make this a provocative but still understandable scene.
It is, as I said at the time, Baby, It's Cold Outside. That song was originally written as a sort of a female empowerment thing, like, she's making excuses, but she wants it. This is how we have to do it in society.
Yeah, society has dictated that she must complain, but she's not really, she's like putting in a token effort. In this scene, this is intended to be, at the time it was intended to be, as far as I'm aware, somewhat aggressive. Deckard is supposed to come across aggressive here.
Sure. And Harrison Ford was also really angry that day.
Because he was having just the worst time of it ever. Famously did not enjoy making this movie.
No.
But the problem is, as the saying goes, current year, this comes across super rapey.
I found the way to soften it best was, I can't put the chicken back in the egg, so I can't know.
It's already nuggets, man. I'm sorry.
But I feel like I would have picked up on the fact that he's a replicant by now in the film. It's toward the beginning of the third act. We've got a lot of clues. Not the final big one, but we've got a lot of clues. And they talk about these outbursts of emotion they start having once they start breaking down. And he's talking very stilted and unnatural even for an 80s scene. Whereas usually this guy is not quite the Han Solo charmer, but he's a little smooth.
He's jocular.
And we know he can act.
Yeah. And he's done a couple scenes in the movie where he's, pretended to be different character and changes his mannerisms. So we know that Deckard is able to convey himself emotionally usually fairly well. And, of course, Harrison Ford is an amazing actor.
Right.
So this is clearly a choice. Also, he was pissed that day.
Right. But I think it makes sense if, if we're having one of those outbursts of realization, because I think this also comes after she asks him if he ever used that test on yourself.
Yeah.
So he might have a lot of internal feelings about that. I think it makes sense for the character without being as creepy as one might view it in current year.
And I just try and keep in mind some parts of movies aren't going to age well, but this is a warning. This part of the movie, the love scene, to use the, I guess, term that they probably used.
Well, we don't see anything, so it's not a sex scene.
Right.
That footage is on the cutting room floor somewhere.
Yeah.
Never swept it up. Still there today.
Yep. But that scene does not come across well with modern sensibilities.
And it is sort of like a 180. Like, the man's mood becomes way more intense.
You're
suddenly.
absolutely right that it with the various changes and additions and watching it again as an adult, by this point in the movie, it's probably a pretty an intentional indication that something is at the very least weird about this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. But you take it in stride. You go, well, that was weird, and the movie moves on.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't really linger on it too long.
Moves right along.
Yeah.
Struggling. Mostly, the only other things I have to talk about are just like enjoyment of the various pieces of world building. But it's all stuff that's been gone over in pop culture so many times.
So, in an attempt to not do the Guardians of the Galaxy podcast,
which is why I'm not doing that. Yes.
Why don't you just pick one of your favorites and tell us about why you like it?
Okay. Let's think.
While you're thinking, I really like the eye shine thing. That was one of the things that I twigged to while watching the movie, and it was nice to see confirmed after the fact when I was researching it, that the replicants all had eye shine.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What a cool... No one says that.
No, it's just a... You're supposed to be able to notice it.
Right, except for Deckard.
Except for Deckard,
Yeah, because he's the new one.
He's the new addition.
Theoretically.
But I think one of my favorite pieces of world building is... it's just the various shots of the, like, city. Not the big wides. Those are cool. They're very dense, very greebly, very, filled with blinking lights. I mean the people. Just the crushed-in mass of humanity in this city, and the fashions and the choices they made for how people are interacting with each other, and the crowd scenes where there's an active shootout going on and people are just sort of like giving it a berth like you do someone who's maybe acting a little weird, while this man is actively shooting a gun. People aren't running. They're just sort of going about their day because that's their life. That's just the existence they have. I really love that because it's all background. They don't call attention to it, but it tells a very clear story about the kind of place the characters are living in.
One of my favorite little-known RPG settings is Slay Industries. I can't really speak for the mechanics. They're a little dense for my tastes. But, and Slay Industries rips off Blade Runner wholesale.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of atmosphere you're describing, I do love. I already loved. And it was really cool to see it realized on film, even if it wasn't a Slay Industries story, because, of the way theft works. But I still did get to see it. I got to see, it constantly raining. I got to see shivers standing around. I got to see, like you said, the dense city where people aren't fazed by violence, but might lean over like, oh, cool, did someone's head get blown off? Nice. Well, gonna go get a donut. Just the grim omnipresence of advertising and...
The weight with which the city presses down on all the people in it.
It just really sells something. I mean, like, it's a dirt simple story. And, like, all the complication about the story is pushed out to the fringes. But the way the world was sculpted tells you so much. Even throwaway lines about, like, how expensive it would be to have a real snake.
Yeah.
Like, it's just... That is a kind of care that I appreciate from a film. And even if I, like I said, didn't have my mind blown by the message, even if I wasn't, if I'm more accustomed to like a more modern high action sort of thriller movie, or high intensity perhaps is a better word, it still gave me a lot to walk away with, and it really kept me entertained for the duration because of how much care it was taking with everything around it.
This was clearly... It's an adaptation, but I don't really know how tight the adaptation is. I've never read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, so I couldn't comment. But whether it's, care for the original source material or just care for what you're making... This movie was made with a lot of care towards making it feel... ensuring verisimilitude. The city feels real and lived in and, arch and maybe, over the top at some points, but in the way a big city is.
Yeah.
I love that about it.
Yeah.
I also really like Deckard's apartment. Just because Deckard's apartment is filled with tiny little pieces of information about his character.
I just realized something, but it's not podcast material. You bastard. Yeah, and let me know in the comments if you're curious, and I'll let you know. It is something worth stealing from, and it's a good thing that so many people have because... I don't know, just what a cool idea. Can you imagine being the guy who invented cyberpunk, basically?
It must be a trip, right?
I mean, like, we had... Oh, there were small nods and stuff, too. There was, like, a building or something that was I can't think of the man's name. The author.
Philip
Not of
K.
this
Dick.
book. No. Bradbury.
Oh, Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, there was some building that was Bradbury in the background, and I was like, oh, that's a cool nod. As I was about to say, obviously Ray Bradbury did a lot of stuff earlier, Isaac Asimov, but like,
Yeah,
science fiction existed.
science fiction existed. I'm sure, the original novel is a similar setting, is a similar story. Might even be very similar. Like I said, I've never read it. But this is the thing that this and the novel that the poor man had to be like, no, they beat me to it.
Yeah.
This and a couple other things are what made cyberpunk, because even if those things existed, this is what brought them into pop culture.